Now it's on. Go.
So what's up, everybody? Thanks for joining us on this month's conversation with Race Remodeled. We're looking to have a conversation about diversity in the workplace. We're going to talk a little bit about how willing people are to have conversations that maybe they weren't ready to have before Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and some of the other tragic incidents that we've experienced as a nation. But diversity and inclusion is not something that's new, that just seemed to be necessary after these incidents. It's always been an issue, and we're looking to dive into that discussion. And we have some good friends and guests along with us today to join us for the conversation. And we hope that you guys get something out of the conversation. I'm sure that I will. So I'll start by introducing everybody. Or you know what? Why don't we let everybody introduce themselves? Like we like to do a really quick intro. Chris likes 8 seconds. I like 20 seconds because Black folk, we be having titles and all kind of stuff. So Lauren, why don't we start with you, then Meek and Kobe, and then Chris, you can let everybody know who you are.
20 seconds?
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lauren Hood. I'm a native Detroiter. I work in community development. I'm trying to change people's minds. I really need us to prioritize Black folks when we're working in Black communities. It's really simple, but it's surprisingly really hard for people to sign on for.
What's up, everyone? I'm Neek Love Rhodes, Dominique Campbell. I'm a wife, mom, native Detroiter, hip hop artist, entrepreneur, and a lover of people and good vibes.
What's going on? Chris Lambert. I am a husband, father of 2 crazy boys, Detroiter, lived in the city since 2015, and founder and CEO of Life Remodeled, and looking forward to learning from these 2 amazing ladies today.
And I forgot, introducing Kobe Nasir Campbell to the world.
What up, Kobe?
Kobe.
Is this Kobe's first time going live?
Going live, yes, but he's
right,
my assistant, so he's always on Zoom calls and stuff with
That's
me.
what's up. That's what's up. All right. Well, I want to dive right in. I've been excited. I've been waiting to have this conversation as soon as you all said that you would join me for the conversation. I've been excited to hear some of your thoughts, and I would love to start with Lauren first. And Lauren, I want to ask you, especially when you talk about wanting us to prioritize Black folk when we are in Black spaces. I think, when some of the conversations that I've been able to have, oftentimes folks are talking about, when they talk about diversity, it seems like, they make it seem as if, we're replacing folks with folks just because they check a box, right? As opposed to like thinking and understanding that like no company just wants to bring somebody in because they check a box. Everybody's looking for talent at the end of the day. So why do you think that many people assume that someone will be hired just because they check a diversity box?
Now, Dwan, some folks are just looking to check the box. Some people really don't understand the value of a diversity in opinion. In my mind, having people with different lived experiences, different values, it gets you to solve the problem faster. You know what I mean? There's a certain kind of alchemy that can only take place if they're all different kinds of perspectives around the table. But a lot of people really don't believe that. There are people that don't believe that people of color have anything to offer. And if they have a seat at the table, that it's, it's charity or it's for optics. There are really people, and some of us think this way. We've been programmed to think that we don't have value and that our contributions are somehow subpar. And I struggle with how much grace I need to extend to people for being in that mindset, because I was once there, So I grew up in an all Black neighborhood, but I got bussed out to a private school in the suburbs. And I think it did a number on my psyche, I was, trying to distance myself from my culture. And over the past 10, 15 years, I've been trying to make my way back. But what that experience taught me is that I need to allow grace for people to be where they are in their understanding. But I'm always struggling with exactly how much.
Right. Yeah, no doubt. I appreciate that. One of the things that I try to teach my children is the different ways that they should address ignorance versus, something that's coming from a hatred or, an ugly space, and the different approach. One's teachable moment and one needs to be met kind of directly and head on. Right. So, yeah, no, I appreciate that. And like sharing that you have struggled with some of the things that we experience, and people that are coming from the space of ignorance and the brainwashing, right? That is done, the number that's done on us. Like, I appreciate that, because that is helpful when it comes to extending grace, because if we can reflect and realize that we've been there and we're coming from that space, it's always helpful. So thank you for adding that component. Chris, I want to shoot a question your way. So I've heard you talk about some of the challenges that you face when trying to add staff to Life Remodeled. And so when did you start to understand the need to have a diverse staff at Life Remodeled?
Yep. So when we talk about diversity, obviously there's a whole lot of different ways we can talk about it. For some settings, having diversity is female leadership, and obviously there's a number of ways we can go at it. But today we're talking about race remodeled, right? So our organization started in Westland, Michigan in 2010, and Dominique was actually one of the first people to ever hear the mission cast in a public setting at the church that we were both at together. And it wasn't until 2013 that we moved into the city of Detroit. And that is when I started to realize we need to racially diversify our staff to look more like the city of Detroit. I think at the time the city was 85% Black, or possibly even higher a percentage at that time. It might be around 80, 82% now, but that's when it began to become apparent we need to make some changes.
That's good. That's good. So Neek, since Chris brought you up, so if you're watching, you got to understand that when I came on staff at Life Remodeled, Neek was already here. And for me, like, also, Black man, grew up in Detroit, seeing Neek there really kind of it was a breath of fresh air to me, because I understood that Life Remodeled had some blind spots that I would look forward to speaking into, but that carrying that weight alone sometimes is just exhausting. So seeing Neek already here and seeing like her swag and the way she repped Detroit, like when I see the artwork of the woman with the D earrings, that just reminds me of Neek. But Neek, what concerns do you have, like, regarding Black voices carrying real weight in the workplaces? That's where I want to start with you.
Oh man, that's a super loaded question. I think for me, and just speaking from my experience, so kind of I've always been used to being, if not the only, one of a few Black voices in the room. So kind of similar to Lauren's story, like being born and raised in Detroit, went to a private school, elementary school out in Redford. So I was like the only Black girl for a while in my class. High school, I went to Renaissance High School. Shout out to the Mighty Phoenix. That was the first time I ever had a Black teacher, was high school. And then college, went to Spring Arbor University, and kind of from Detroit, university in the middle of nowhere, and again, being one of the only, oftentimes, the only Black voice in my class. So I've kind of been like, kind of used to that. And it's super exhausting. And so for me, the weight comes from, when we have to always feel like I have to speak for my entire race, when we know that Black folks, we are not a monolith, and that we have diversity of opinion, thought, experiences, philosophies, ways of doing things. And so just the sheer pressure of feeling like whatever I say is going to be now applied to how Black people think until they meet another Black person, and so it's exhausting, it's draining. But on the flip side of that, I've seen that cripple a lot of people, where a lot of people don't want to speak up, and don't let their voice be heard because they don't want to have to deal with the pressure of it, or the backlash if they say something that may ruffle feathers. And so I would encourage anyone who is in that position to really like, your voice is powerful, and you owe it to yourself first and foremost to like speak your own truth and your perspective when you have the opportunity. And that's just also being able to have an opportunity to really open the door and just open the floodgates for more Black voices to be heard in these spaces. And so, even if you are the only one, and it's a lot of pressure, but hopefully that can pave the way for more people to come in, so you won't be the only one, and more people to raise their voice.
That's good. No, thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, it's heavy. It's a heavy weight. Lawrence, you said something earlier, and then kind of coming right behind kind of some of the points he was making that makes me excited to hear what you have to say for you. So can you talk about like the benefits of an organization, company, or anybody in the business space landing a Black employee that is honest and brave enough to call out workplace culture regarding racist practices?
Wait, can you say it again?
Okay.
I was having I was getting glitchy.
Okay, sorry. So
I might turn my camera off so I can save bandwidth.
So talk about the benefits of landing a Black employee that is honest and brave enough to call out workplace culture when it was regarding work racist practices. So somebody that's bold enough to be real in a corporate setting.
Man, it's a struggle. I feel like the whole sector that I work in is scared to death to say Black, to advocate Black. So like just finding an organization or a company where that can happen, man, we got whole sectors where people can't say it. And I don't know, it's worthy of investigation in a place that's like 80% Black, why so few people can lead with Black. And it's across, all the sectors. Because we're always worrying about, like, we don't want to sound too angry. I feel like certain white folks assume that if we get in leadership positions, that means we're going to subjugate them or somehow punish them for all the years of oppression that we have experienced. That is not the case. We just want opportunities to like be fully actualized. Like, it has nothing to do with like where you are. Just help us remove the barriers so that we can get where we want to be. It's not about taking your spot. It's about wanting a spot of our own. But it is a struggle to find folks that would speak that truth to power. Because if you realize you're in an organization that wants to suppress you, usually if you're one of those powerful people, you just leave. So I can't see the situation where you'd be like, oh, I'm going to stand up for myself. Lots of folks just want to leave if they recognize that the waters they're swimming in aren't conducive to how they want to behave. But that person who does take that risk, there's a lot on the line. There's like your personal reputation, like for future jobs you're going to go for. There's like your social standing. There's a lot at stake that people are considering when they think about speaking out against injustice within the workplace.
Definitely. So Chris, I want to come right behind that and ask you this next question. So did you face challenges? And if so, like what were some of the challenges when you want to become more diverse when it comes to staff at Life Remodel, specifically when hiring Black Detroiters?
Yeah, a number of challenges. One was finding African Americans that wanted the job, that would even apply to the job opportunities that we were posting. And so we had grown very rapidly from when we started 10 years ago to where we are now. And there were certain years where we were growing really, really fast. And we had a number of opportunities coming up left and right, but we were getting a very, very small percentage of African-American applicants. And the white applicants that we were getting were more qualified for the particular roles that we were trying to fill in general. And that really frustrated me, because when I thought about the fact that we were in a city that was over 80% Black, that didn't make any sense to me why we weren't getting better applicants. And so one of the things that I immediately thought of at the time, in my limited understanding, was the fact that about 80% of jobs are acquired through relationships, right? People acquire their job because of a friend or a family member or whatnot. They hear about the job, they get their application maybe to the front of the line. And that's a lot of the ways that promotions are playing into relationships as well. And so I guess it hit me, the fact that I had all these relationships with white people in the suburbs. I was living in the suburbs at the time, and almost all my relationships were white people in the suburbs, that of course I didn't have a relational network to find applicants that represented the city of Detroit. And so one of the changes I made in my life was to spend a lot more time developing relationships with Black leaders in various churches, various other organizations, and attending environments where I was the minority in terms of my race. And that was a really important part of the whole forward progress, where we actually are now at a place where over half of our staff is Black.
All right. That's what's up. No, thanks for sharing. So like, I want to make it kind of personal now behind that. And, you know, I think that we've had enough time for the folks, slow stragglers, to jump on. And I was saving some of these questions for them to jump on. So Neek, I can recall a time when you were on staff, you really encouraging Chris to get us some cultural competency training and saying, yo, like, we need to bring somebody in here because we just ain't getting it as a team, right? And I think, you know, Chris's response often was like, well, look, we got Dewan, we got you, like, we good, we straight, right? So I can remember, you know, seeing some of the frustration on you, but it seems like the learning is incremental, right? Like, you see growth, and then you see growth, and it's like, for us, like, we want to see somebody get it right now because of the weightiness that you talked about. But can you just talk about like some of the frustrations during that time that you would experience, and some of the conversations that you may have had with yourself? I don't even know, but I assume that you had to have with yourself, like, how long do I wait this out for us to get it? Yeah. Do I leave? Can you talk about?
Can I say something, Dominique? You don't need my permission. We're friends.
For sure.
And I don't want our friendship in any way to cause you to think that you need to hold back anything to say, because I want people to learn from my failures. I got a lot of them, everybody. Right. So anyway,
yeah, I don't think you would have had to worry about Neek holding back when she worked for you. So you damn sure had to worry about her holding back now that she's like, don't work for you. So come on with it, Neek.
Yeah. So I think it was a few frustrations that I had. One, and I would say like the main one that I had was just kind of the pushback, like, no, like, we don't need, we have you, we have Dewan. At the time we had a good friend of ours, Carlton. We have, the three of you on staff, like, we can work this out. And it was just conversations that I was seeing in white staff, that how, team members would talk to kids in the neighborhood that we were working in, and me trying to address that, and it becomes, you're calling me a racist? And it's like, no, I'm just saying, like, like, as a white person, watch how you talk to this young Black kid, because it's going to be perceived in a certain way because you're white. It's just what it is. And having a lot of those uncomfortable conversations where it became, a real issue, where it's like, why do we always have to talk about race? I think in team meetings, it was either me or Dewan bringing up something that was, race related, whether it's community relations early on, specifically with the Durfee Project, that was a whole lot as far as like community relations and just how, how Life Remodel initially came into that neighborhood, was a huge issue. And I think, it's been great to see just you learn from that, because that was a huge issue where, I remember one time when I was on staff, I would be in like Whole Foods and somebody would like roll up on me because I had a Life Remodel t-shirt and they're like, yo, what's up with this? And I'm like, like, talk to Chris. Like, that's what Chris, and so, even dealing with like the public perception in a way Life Remodel moved throughout the neighborhood, I think was just something that could have been resolved early on if we had better cultural competency training. And so just pushing for that, like I feel like every other staff meeting, me and Chris, kind of went at it. But I think it's, that was my biggest frustration. And, that's, I think, part of really the reason. It was a multitude of other personal reasons too why I decided to step away. But that was, that was for sure a factor, just knowing what an organization could be, and, the reluctance of the leadership to like really take it there, after a number of incidences where it was like, obviously, like, this is another example of why we need, this training. So, it was a process. I'm glad Life Remodeled is there now. We're getting there in the process. And, Chris, I appreciate you and I just even having conversations, since then. And, that's how things happen. That's how things change and evolve. It takes time, but it takes people pushing the needle. And, is sometimes even as hard as it gets. And, you may feel like you're sounding like a broken record, but keep speaking that truth, keep putting it out there, because eventually people are going to have to listen and make a change, take some type of action.
That's good. No, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. We could do a whole show with you and Chris, kind of like talking through that and unpacking that. Lauren, what I want to ask you about, Lauren.
I want to hear that.
Yeah,
we should do a show,
Yeah,
a little
yeah.
series.
I bet a lot of people want to hear that. People got questions for you.
Chris and Nick, let's do it.
Chris, go ahead and talk about like when the light bulb came on, or when you finally heard what Nick was saying, even after she was gone, and saw what she was trying to point out. And then I'll give Lauren the question I have for her behind that.
I remember exactly when and where that conversation was, and I said what you both just said, and I was dead wrong. And Nick, I don't remember the day it was. I called you up and I told you that when we actually did hire someone and bring someone from the outside, and I didn't see it because I didn't know what I didn't know. And I'm a person who I've lived in or traveled to every continent in the world except for Antarctica. I lived in Africa for 9 months, lived in Australia for 7 months, lived in a bunch of different places. I thought I knew cultural context. I thought I was really, really good at it. And I thought I knew Detroit because I'd had a lot of Black friends and so on and so forth. And coming into Durfee and Central and the mistakes that we made that brought about massive amounts of criticism rightfully deserved really put me in my place and sent me down a journey where I had to look inwardly, and I had to look at our organization, and I had to do a lot of reading and a lot of conversations that opened my eyes to things that I did not see before. And finally, I began to see the need for that training that you've been talking about multiple times. And just one thing I want to add to that, because I apologize for expecting you and Dewan and Carlton to fix our issues. And I can say that one of the things that I've learned is, as someone, I'm really passionate about vulnerability and transparency. And it has been a major struggle for our team of all races, white, Black, you name it, to really get to a place of extreme levels of vulnerability and transparency about everything, not just race. And so most of the people that I've worked with on our teams over the years haven't come from organizations where there's been a lot of that freedom to be vulnerable and transparent. And so for me to expect for you to have to be the ones to be vulnerable and transparent while others weren't playing by those same rules was really poor of me as a leader. And I haven't arrived. I'll never arrive. Our Life Remodeled hasn't arrived. We're anti-racist. We're becoming more anti-racist. We're on a journey, and I'm on a journey, and you've played a big part in helping me out. And I'm glad that we stayed friends.
Absolutely. It's all, I mean, it's like I said in my intro, I'm all about good vibes, and I've my parents have raised me and instilled in me that it's a certain way to speak the truth in love, and sometimes it's, you know, sometimes it's gonna be straight up. You know, it should always be straight up, but if you're doing it from a sincere place of love and you're not, you know, without any malice, then you're always gonna be good, you know, regardless. And so I'm glad I don't believe in burning bridges, you know. I always joke with people now. I start kind of conversations and debates on my Facebook page, and some people are like, "How are you friends with this person and they're a Trump supporter or whatever?"
That's
And
not me, by the way.
no, not you. But I have some weird, some crazy. Yeah. But it's, you know, I think it's important to just be able to have these discussions, you know, with people and be able to, you know, speak up. And if, you know, if someone's going to receive it, great. If not, then, you know, they'll get it eventually or they won't get it at all. And then, you know, it'll be a downfall at some point. That's just, you know, what it is. And that's how I kind of have always looked at it, but never burning bridges, because, you know, we all fall short. It was times where, you know, I wasn't the person who I am now, and I had views that were super closed off, or I thought I knew everything there was to know about something. So yeah, we all works in progress, and I kind of like to keep that in the front of my heart and my head as I move.
No, that's good. That's good. That's what's up. So Lauren, that's a little peek into some of the things that happened at Life Remodeled. I think for me, so one of the questions that Chris asked me when we were talking about the potential for me coming on staff was what interests me about potentially taking a position at Life Remodeled, and my response was the opportunity to speak into some of Life Remodeled's blind spots, right? And Chris let me know maybe a year ago that when I first said that, it caught him off guard, and he was like, "Man, who does he think he is? He don't really even know us that well, this, that, and the other." But then he pivoted from there to wanting to know what the blind spots were. So my question to you, Lauren, is like, one of the things that frustrates me is that I know what Anik brings to the table that's not even in the job description, right? But we know oftentimes how much these organizations need that, right? So do you think that should be a spot on a job description? Because I think that we're leaving money on the table when it's not. So do you think that, like, we should be compensated for that type of experience that we bring to organizations when it comes to understanding of race and systemic oppression?
Oh, that's interesting. No, I think we need to get paid for all of it. Like I said, I work in community development, and we invite residents of a community to spend like a whole half a day with us. Like, we're getting paid. I get paid okay, but I know how much other consultants get paid to spend like a half a day working with folks on their community, and we don't give them anything. I'm like, why are we paying people? They have some expertise that we don't have. They know things we don't know. All of our knowledge should be valued at the same level. If we're getting paid, those folks should also be getting paid. But I think we have to name it. We kind of, it's stuff that we inherently do. So we don't think of it as a skill set because we are naturally culturally competent. So you can't even, you know, it's hard to measure if it's a part of just your way of being. But yeah, I'm all about moving forward, labeling that stuff and adding on additional zeros to the extent possible to get compensated for it, because it is a skill set that some people don't have.
Definitely. No, definitely. I agree with you wholeheartedly. So Chris, I'm going to swing back your way and ask, so how has adding Black Detroiters like helped Life Remodeled, if you were to kind of try to sum it up?
Lauren said it earlier about perspective, and this city is at least 80% Black. That matters. That's really important. And when I first started Life Remodel, I was living in the suburbs. I didn't live in Detroit, didn't move in Detroit until 2015. Okay, we started the organization in 2010. And who in the world am I to be making decisions about a city that's over 80% Black when I didn't grow up in a Black community? I had at the time a few Black friends, and we already talked about my ignorance level. Okay. So then when you compound that with the vast majority of our volunteers are white, great. I mean, but people from companies, churches, you name it, tons and tons of white people who don't know the experience of Black Americans in Detroit. And so the perspective is absolutely everything. And certainly it's obvious when it comes down to making decisions about what to do, but not just what to do, how to do it. And then literally almost any conversation we could have about almost any issue that we've had, even if initially I didn't think it was related to race, there are very clear realities and layers to race that play into those discussions. And so we've made way better decisions than we've ever made. Our whole organization is called Life Remodeled. It's not called Detroit Remodeled. So we believe, and we have always believed cognitively, that the cities need to grow just as much. I mean, the suburbs need to grow just as much, if not more, than the work that we think we're doing in Detroit. And I don't know that I really believe that in my heart. Over time, I've come to really believe that in my heart. And I've experienced that personal transformation. That in turn has led to other staff and other volunteers and other leaders.
Oh, that's good. Appreciate that. Neek, I got a question, and this is a question that I wrestle with and struggle with, and I'm gonna give it to you and Lauren after you, and then I'm gonna open it up to some of our comments. And if you guys have questions for anybody on here, I will save a few minutes for you guys to shoot some questions our way. But do you feel like the Detroit business community is starting to mirror like the NBA and NFL, right? And what I mean by that is, like, it looks like the GMs, the owners, the coaches, the managers are white, and then some of the talent is Black, and it seems like there's an effort, be it the system or just, intentionally or unintentionally, it's starting to look like that. So are you seeing that? Am I tripping, or like are you is that on y'all radar as well?
No, you're
Can
not
you speak
tripping.
to that?
You're not
And share
tripping.
your
So
thoughts on that.
it's definitely like that from my work of specifically in the nonprofit sector. You see that a lot, where you see these organizations who are doing great work, but their entire leadership, or the majority of their leadership, is white, right? And they have maybe people who are at a level underneath the leadership, who are kind of boots on the ground, doing the work, who are Black. You see that a bunch of times in the nonprofit sector. I think you also see it, kind of the sector that I'm in now, even within arts and culture, where you have, most of the talent at these venues are Black. Most of the venue owners are white, and they don't want to pay artists, and that's something that I've been really advocating for through my organizations, advocating for artists to be able to get paid a fair wage. And so you definitely see it. I definitely think there's a shift, though, from people like myself, Lauren. It's a bunch of activists and advocates and entrepreneurs, and just really Black folks who's like, no, we have the talent, we have the sauce, you're going to pay us. We're going to secure these bags and we're going to build our own table for all of our people to be able to eat. And, and so you have kind of that mindset of like, I would say, I kind of call it the Diddy effect, the P Diddy effect, or like just like Black excellence. Like, you have like the Afro-futurist movement that's happening now, where it's like, nah, we gonna own our own spaces, we gonna own our own venues, we gonna get money together, we're gonna build economically together, and so you're definitely seeing that energy, rise to the top. So I'm always an optimist, and I would say, for sure within the next 10 years, I think we're gonna see Detroit not only remain like a Black city, but you're going to see the leadership and the influencers and the movers and shakers and people who really are behind the money flow. You're going to see that those people being, representative of our city and our community. So we pushing. It's not going to be like that for long. Just hold on. Hold on. It's coming. We out here.
That's what's up. So Lauren, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, and if you could, after giving your thoughts, share with us why we should be hopeful that things will get better, if you have any ideas on that. But I want to hear your thoughts on that question or point, and help me understand that I'm not tripping.
Well, in some instances, I don't even think we're on the field. So you're like, are we the staff? And then there's white leadership. Sometimes we're not even in the mix. Right. But then inversely, there are times when we might have a leadership role, but behind the scenes, there is this board that has a different ideology. Because I think if you looked at our nonprofit sector, there are a lot of Black women in leadership. But the boards are very different. And I don't know actually, I do know. I was going to say, I don't know the extent to which they can do what they want to do. They can't, because I've been there. What am I talking about? So it's one thing to have a figurehead kind of leadership. And it's another thing to have a really empowered Black leader that can do and say and act in favor of their people. Because sometimes what we need to thrive, what needs to happen in us in order for us to thrive, is directly in contrast to what the nonprofit needs to stay operating. You know what I mean? Nonprofits are really doing their job. They're going to put themselves out of business. But I feel like, they do just enough to be like, look what we did, but also maintain the need for them to exist. So yeah, it's a lot of, the optics are right. I think that's true for nonprofit sector and city government. Like City Hall is full of a bunch of Black folks, but to what extent can they advocate for Black people? Can they make decisions that really benefit us? Things look a certain way on the surface, but once you like get in there and lift up the hood, you kind of see something different. So I always encourage people to work on their critical thinking skills. And it's not just to criticize, but it's like to ask critical questions so that we can do better. Like nobody wants to just criticize for the sake of criticizing. It's so that we can do better.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, there's so much room for growth here, and we gotta seize it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I agree wholeheartedly. And I'm quick to criticize and critique and look in the mirror, as well as like encourage people to look in the mirror, but not just for the sake of criticism. We need to move the needle, right? And I think, Nick, I don't know if you remember, but I think it was my second staff meeting at Life Remodeled where, I challenged us and said that, we don't have a problem sharing resources, but, said, and I was speaking from a Christian perspective, though Life Remodeled is not a Christian organization or faith-based organization at all. Like I know that I'm a believer, and I know that many of the people in that room were believers. And I said, we don't have a problem sharing resources, but I said, and especially like white folks from the Christian community in the suburbs, you don't mind sharing resources, but what you don't like to do is share power. And that's two different things, right?
Absolutely.
Like, and we want to know if you're ready to share power. And I thought that for sure that would get me kicked out. And my whole take on being in those spaces is if I'm going to get uninvited, I want to do it quickly, so we're not wasting each other's time. But I'm still here. We're going on 4 years later. And I think that one of the things that I said was like, not just a critique to your point, Lauren, but we don't have a lot of blueprints to follow when it comes to sharing power. So we need to be in the business of creating a blueprint, right? And, I'm glad to say that one of the people that was against or fought back against Life Remodel coming to the community is actually a board member on Life Remodel right now. And we're still trying to find creative ways to make sure that there's shared power and not just share resources with the organization. Yeah, so I'm glad that some of the progress that I've seen happen within the organization. And I don't take credit for it. I believe it's the community giving Life Remodel the pushback that Chris described early has so much to do, everything to do with some of the pivots and some of the changes. And they're the real hero of the day to some of the points that you both made earlier. So we're at the 440 mark. We believe in making it strong, impactful, and short. Chris, I want to give you an opportunity to share anything that you want to share in some of the stuff that you just heard Neek say and Lauren say and me say. Some of that stuff is probably you hearing some of that for the first time.
I need like a specific question, I think.
Go ahead. I got one for you.
Yeah.
I got. So have your perspectives of Black. No, that's too easy.
Yeah, give me a fastball, curveball, whatever you want.
Have your perspective of yourself. How have your perspective of Chris Lambert changed since working in this space?
Well, certainly when you don't know what you don't know, you can have a level of confidence. And the more I've discovered what I don't know, at first it was real disarming. And, it was like these foundational pieces of what I thought I knew, what I thought I understood were being pulled out from under me. And somebody mentioned defensiveness earlier. I think Angela talked about when a leadership gets challenged, a white leadership, they can become defensive. And I walked through a lot of that. And I've experienced that kind of breaking of my worldview in different areas of life. So eventually I began to embrace that and get excited about that. And what I've learned is that I've never really understood my race until about the last 3 or 4 years. I had no idea what it meant to be white. Whenever I would check a box for some governmental form on your race or whatever, I had no idea what to check. I didn't want to check anything. I thought that didn't apply to me. And really understanding the privilege that comes along with my skin color, my whiteness, because of the social constructs that have been created since the 1600s has been really important for me to realize the role that I can play. And that always has to be as a learner first, and then leading out of my learnings and leading out of humility. And so I've come to realize that if I want to move the needle and help shape other white people's lenses who are genuinely wanting to learn, I don't get real far when I point the finger at people or where I make people intentionally feel uncomfortable, or I tell them, you should do this, you should do that. I get a lot farther personally as a white man when I talk about what an idiot I am and when I talk about the stupid things that I've done. And then all of a sudden people can begin to see themselves in those situations and without the pressure of a finger being pointed at them. And all of a sudden they arrive at conclusions of, oh, I've been that person. I've been that guy as well too. So I consider it now a responsibility on my part to be vulnerable frequently, to tell these stories as often as I possibly can, and to also challenge and offend people when necessary, because I'm not afraid to offend people. Dominique knows that. I will say, though, I found myself being way easier on Black leadership in our organization than white leadership because I was afraid to challenge. And some of the white staff picked up on that, whether they told me or they kind of told me inadvertently, right? And I've now come to a place of where a lot of that had to do with even how our organization was structured. And Duan, the structural changes we've made where our accountability is really more at a communal sense where we're keeping each other accountable. And that's really helped me to help us work on creating a culture of accountability that's so important to the success of an organization. And instead, I would just get frustrated when an African-American person maybe needed more accountability, just like every human being does, right? Needed more accountability in a certain place. I need accountability. We all need accountability, but I would not bring it. And because I didn't want to offend someone. So I don't know. That's a little bit of an answer to your question. I got a lot more to learn. That's why I surround myself with people like Neek. Yeah. And Lauren, I want to learn from you. Everyone I know talks about you're the best of the best in these conversations. So I'm your student.
So I like the problem solve or drop nuggets when we get an opportunity to. So Melanie asked a question, and I want to throw it out to Lauren or Dominique if y'all want to try to answer this. What can I, as a leader of a nonprofit, make certain that my Black teammates can bring their transparent feelings and needs to the table? She wants to make sure that they're included in all that we do. We are working hard at inclusion, but I'm always open for suggestions and/or direction. Lauren, you want to take a stab at that one?
Sure. Well, it's really funny. I've been in like racial justice trainings all week around this very topic for 3 different organizations. And I would want to just raise the point that you have to treat the water as well as the fish. So if you are giving like bias trainings to your staff and people are getting all woke, that's not enough. If your organizational culture doesn't change to suit your newly woke staff, they're not going to stick around and it's not going to work. So you have to, in addition to like working on the people, you have to work on your organizational culture. So your policies have to change, your procedures, the way you do things. And if you're a big organization, it can be like a years-long process. People keep calling like, yeah, let me get a racial equity training right quick, like it's a Happy Meal or something. And I'm like, how much money do you have to invest? How much time are you willing to commit? How far up the chain does this go? Is your leadership in this, or is this just a cute little DEI committee that you're trying to make something happen with? There's so many considerations, and I think right now people are responding to the trend. But yeah, my question is always, when are we gonna get to the transformation? Like, you really want to do it? You really want to do it? You got to sign up for something that takes a long time and costs a lot.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, making that investment. Neek, I saw you make a gesture like you might want to say something. I think Fred wants to know if you ready to hand Life Remodeled over to him, Chris.
Fred, that might have been more to the question than what Fred was asking, but Fred, thanks for the question. And we do hope to launch other chapters of our organization in other cities around the country, and cities that have populations of 500,000 people or more, where each of those chapters would have their own CEO, their own board. And my hope would be that the leader of whatever chapter represents the dominant racial culture of whatever communities they're working in. And so if they're working in a Black community predominantly, then I would hope that the CEO would be an African American.
But you got to make sure your culture is conducive to that. Like, you can still have some supremacy in your waters, even if you have some Black leadership.
You know what? Let's pull up this question by Josh. I couldn't agree more. And that's why one of the things I want to learn is more and more of my blind spots. So when Dwan talked about blind spots, now I'm constantly trying to ask him and ask others. So what are some of those things that you see that often go missed by white male leaders like myself?
Man, let me chime in. I got some. So
I was asking Lauren. I didn't want a real-life example.
Hey, look, Meek done put Kobe down and everything. I don't even know what Kobe is.
Because my response will be objective and Meek will be about you. That's why you're like, yeah, let's hear the stuff that doesn't pertain to me necessarily.
Bring it. Model my life, please.
Well, What I've heard a lot of in the past week is people don't feel like they can bring their cultural selves to work. So people aren't talking about where they grew up. They're not talking about what they do over the weekend. People are code switching with their language. Why do we still do that? I know, like my mom called me out on it when I was a kid. She's like, I can tell when you're on the phone with one of your little neighborhood friends and when you're on the phone with one of the kids from your school. And what I'm kind of proud of now is I don't think about it anymore. And I'd like to think I'm somewhere in the middle. Like I don't sound super Valley girl like I used to, but I also don't sound super hood rat either. But these are considerations that your staff of color are always taking into account. We're always like, okay, am I being welcoming or am I being angry? You know, this is just stuff that we always have to think about. I think about that every time I walk into my building because I live in a building with a bunch of white people. And I'm like, okay, you know, I want to look friendly. I don't want to look like the angry Black girl. This is just stuff that it's always on our mind that, you know, it happens when we're in the workplace too. Like, and if some racial stuff goes down in the national media, we want to talk about it. Like I remember working at a startup tech firm here and some stuff went down. I don't remember which thing because a lot of stuff happened really close together, but I just had to sit at my desk kind of upset and in my feelings because I knew that nobody else in my vicinity was having the same reaction to what had happened. So to think about how we have to carry around like trauma and grief and fear, and there's like nobody around us that feels the same way, that is tough, man. That is tough. And it's not like, and you can say like, oh, I try to create a really welcoming environment. We have to be like extra intentional about it. Just you being like a nice guy, like isn't enough. You have to explicitly say like, please bring your full racial self to work. And people have to believe that like their cultural contributions are also valuable.
Yeah. No, that's good. Now, I'll make sure we press pause at Life Remodel. When some crazy stuff happen and we all walking around like, and it's heavy, I'm like, yo, like we got to call a meeting, a team meeting, and everybody that wants to come is invited to it. And like, yeah, we call timeouts here when that stuff is happening. It's mandatory because, yeah. But Neek, we almost got away with like not getting you to drop the hammer down. So what you got?
I'm not gonna drop the hammer down.
Again, I think we're gonna have to go. My bandwidth is out.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna drop the hammer down. But one of somebody asked a question about like the microaggressions or some of the things to look out for. One of the things that I would say, and I think I've told Chris this, but like there could be where I would like say something or like make a suggestion or not even make a suggestion, but we're having a conversation. It could be about capacity. It could be about something super like, you know, nonprofit talk, business, and I could say something and then somebody else would say something and they'd be like, oh yeah. And it's like, I just said that, dude. Like I just said that. And I hear so many of my friends, like we have those conversations. And that happened. So like not only at Life Remodel, but it's happened at previous companies that I've worked for and done work with. And so I think that's something that a lot of people, especially white men who are in leadership, specifically to people of color, but also to women, of, you know, just really when someone is sharing something, make sure that you're really listening, processing, you know, and even giving that back to that person. This is what I'm hearing that you're saying. Is something that's really important, and just something that simple can make people you know, feel heard and, you know, comfortable with you know, bringing their full selves to the table. But just really like piggybacking off of Lauren's comment, I think with diversity and inclusion, treating that just like you would your development strategy, just how you treated it as your marketing strategy, that if not is more important, because if you begin to have a toxic culture, it's gonna impact every single other aspect of business eventually. And so I think the diversity and inclusion piece, it needs to be valued even more so than our development marketing. It needs to be built into organizational like mission and vision. It needs to be within like the fabric of everything, that you do. Just how an artist, me just as a musician, how some artists, whether they're doing music or whether they're endorsing a brand, no matter what they touch, you can still see their essence and what they're associating with. And I think nonprofits have to have that similar mind state when it comes to diversity and inclusion.
I want to chime in with one learning, because 3 years ago, when you just shared what you shared about how I passed over and someone else said the same comment you said earlier, and then I acknowledged it from someone else and not from you. And 3 years ago, my mind instantly would have jumped to, how did Neek misunderstand that moment? Or how did Neek read too much into that? And now my mind jumps immediately to, how is she right? And where did I miss it? And that's been a major shift for me. One in which I still have to process a lot, but thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So, you're welcome.
I don't want to hold y'all. I want y'all to come back and know that we'll shut it down in a timely fashion. I know that some of y'all, like me, probably want a lot more. But I think that you guys have seen that progress can be made in hearing kind of part of the Life Remodel story, and having Lauren here to kind of like walk through some of this with us. I appreciate you, Lauren. I appreciate you.
I can engage you in a process by which your organization can transform.
There we go.
I like that. That's a nice plug. And
cut the check.
Neek, I appreciate you for jumping on and kind of being real with us. I mean, I already knew what to expect. And Chris, I shout you out, because I know it's uncomfortable. You know what I mean? And there are many layers to this onion. And if Lauren says some damage has been done to her through her experience, and I know that I've had damage done, and I'm still unpeeling this stuff and the damage that's been done. So I know that we all have a long way to go, but I appreciate you for, representing and modeling like what it can potentially look like. And I hope folks will look on and realize that it's not going to be comfortable. You got to get some real folks around you that's not going to be like super impressed with your track record and all of that, but willing to walk through some of the hard work with you. So I just want to encourage folks that's watching to be willing to do that. And I hope that we can look back and say that, like, diversity, inclusion, Afro-urbanism, like, is interwoven into the fabric of Life Remodeled. We'll see y'all next time. Peace.
Peace.